When the Yellow Pages became a symbol of trust inside the home, there was a time when the Yellow Pages did not just sit in your house. It lived there. It had seniority. It had authority. It probably had its own spot on a small wooden table near the landline phone, and everyone in the house knew exactly where it was. You did not search for it. You reached for it. Before 5-star ratings and search bars, this thick yellow book was the final word. Need a plumber because the sink decided to become a fountain? Grab the Yellow Pages? Looking for a pizza place that delivers after 9? Flip to P. It was fast, simple, and strangely comforting. There was no scrolling, no pop-up ads, no endless comparison. Just categories, names, and numbers waiting patiently. And here is what made it powerful. If a business appeared in the Yellow Pages, it felt official. It felt real. People trusted ink on paper more than a stranger's opinion. Being printed meant you were established. It meant you had an address, a phone line, and enough stability to invest in being listed. That created instant credibility. The physical weight of the book added to the feeling. It was heavy, solid, reliable. You could drop it on the floor and it would survive. In many homes, it doubled as a booster seat for kids or a makeshift step stool. It was useful even when you were not using it for information. The Yellow Pages became more than a directory. It became a symbol. A quiet reminder that answers were always within reach, one flip away. The industrial-scale printing and distribution network behind every edition. Long before it landed on your doorstep, the Yellow Pages had already completed a journey most people never thought about. That thick book did not magically appear. It was the result of a massive industrial operation that ran with military precision. We are talking about printing presses the size of small buildings, rolling day and night, producing millions of pages at a time. Each edition was customized by city and region. That meant different businesses, different categories, different local ads. Entire teams worked months in advance collecting listings, confirming phone numbers, selling ad space, and organizing content. Deadlines were strict. Once the presses started, there was no easy turning back. The printing itself was only half the story. Distribution was its own logistical marathon. Trucks loaded with stacks of fresh directories fanned out across towns and cities. Delivery workers went door to door, leaving copies on porches, in apartment lobbies, outside office buildings. It was systematic and predictable. Every year, like clockwork, the new edition arrived. For decades, this machine ran smoothly. Telephone companies and directory publishers built empires on this process. The scale was staggering. Millions of households, millions of businesses, all connected through ink and paper. And here is what makes it remarkable. This entire operation existed to make sure that when someone needed a service, they could find it instantly. It was infrastructure disguised as a book, a physical search engine delivered by hand. At its peak, the Yellow Pages was not just a directory. It was one of the largest coordinated printing and distribution systems in the modern world, operating quietly in the background of everyday life. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. We all thank you for your continued support. The science of categories, alphabet placement, and visibility control. At first glance, the Yellow Pages looked simple. Just names, numbers, and categories arranged neatly on paper. But behind that simplicity was a carefully designed system that quietly controlled who got seen first and who got overlooked. Everything began with categories. Businesses were not listed randomly. They were grouped under clear headings like plumbers, electricians, dentists, or auto repair. Those category titles mattered. Being placed in the right section meant customers could actually find you. Being placed in a vague or secondary category could mean fewer calls. Then came the power of alphabetical order. If you owned a company called A1 Plumbing, that was not an accident. Many businesses deliberately added extra A's or numbers at the beginning of their names just to appear first in the list. Being at the top of a page meant more visibility. More visibility meant more calls. It was that simple. But the real strategy showed up in paid placements. Larger ads appeared before standard listings. Bold fonts stood out. Boxed ads grabbed attention. Full-page spreads dominated entire sections. Even within a strict alphabetical structure, visibility could be purchased and elevated. The design of the directory was not chaotic. It was engineered. Spacing, font size, and placement were carefully arranged to guide the reader's eye. When someone flipped to a category, their attention naturally landed on the largest or highest positioned listing first. What looked like a basic phone book was actually a structured marketplace of attention. Every page quietly balanced order and competition, giving businesses a chance to stand out if they were willing to invest in being seen. How tiered advertising packages generated massive local revenue. The Yellow Pages was never just about listings. It was about selling attention. And the way it did that was surprisingly sophisticated. Businesses were not simply asked whether they wanted to be included. They were offered choices. Small listing, bold listing, boxed listing, half-page ad, full-page ad, premium positioning. Each option came with a different price tag and a different promise. For a small business owner, this felt like a serious decision. A basic listing would get you in the book, but a larger ad could make you stand out instantly. Sales representatives knew exactly how to pitch it. They would explain how being bigger on the page meant being bigger in the customer's mind. They would point to competitors who had upgraded. No one wanted to look smaller than the shop down the street. And it worked. For decades, businesses allocated a significant portion of their marketing budgets to these ads. The Yellow Pages became one of the most reliable sources of local advertising revenue in the world. Entire industries depended on it. Plumbers, lawyers, contractors, restaurants. Many reported that a large percentage of their yearly calls came directly from those pages. What made the system powerful was predictability. Once a business committed, it often renewed automatically year after year. The directory became a recurring expense, almost like rent or utilities. Reliable revenue for the publisher, reliable visibility for the advertiser. Behind that bright yellow cover was a carefully structured advertising engine that quietly turned paper and ink into millions, sometimes billions, in steady local income. What receiving the Yellow Pages meant for communities each year. There was something oddly ceremonial about the arrival of the Yellow Pages. You would open your front door, and there it was, resting on the porch like an annual reminder that the world of local businesses had refreshed itself. It did not come with fireworks or announcements, yet everyone recognized it. The new edition had arrived. For households, it signaled continuity. The town was still running. The same plumbers were still fixing leaks. The same diners were still serving breakfast. The same repair shops were still open for business. Flipping through the updated pages felt like taking a snapshot of your community at that moment in time. For businesses, Delivery Day carried more weight. It meant visibility had officially begun for the year. Owners hoped their ads looked strong. They checked competitor placements. They waited for the phone to ring. That physical book represented potential customers sitting just a few blocks away. The Yellow Pages also connected neighborhoods in a quiet way. New residents could learn about local services instantly. Longtime residents could discover businesses they never knew existed. It acted as a shared reference point, something everyone in the area received regardless of background. Over time, that shared experience created familiarity. The book was not exciting, but it was dependable. It arrived on schedule. It reflected the local economy. It reminded people that their town was active and interconnected. For decades, that simple doorstep delivery carried more meaning than anyone realized. It was not just a directory. It was a yearly update on the heartbeat of the community. The subtle market signals that pointed to trouble long before collapse. The fall of the Yellow Pages did not begin with a dramatic announcement. It started quietly, almost invisibly. At first, The books were just a little thinner. A few categories had fewer listings. Some longtime advertisers chose smaller ads instead of full pages. These were small changes, easy to dismiss. Then something else began to shift. Businesses started asking new questions. How many calls are actually coming from this ad? Is this worth the price? For decades, those questions were rarely raised. The return felt obvious. But as alternative advertising options slowly appeared, doubt crept in. Another early signal was changing behavior inside homes. The book was still there, but it was not being opened as often. It stayed cleaner, less worn. Sometimes it remained in its plastic wrapping for weeks. People were beginning to explore new ways of finding information, even if they did not fully trust them yet. Advertisers noticed rising costs and shrinking response rates. Some negotiated harder. Others experimented with reducing their size. When renewal season came around, a few businesses declined entirely. That may not have sounded alarming at first, but the Yellow Pages model depended on consistent renewals. None of this happened overnight. There was no single moment when everything collapsed. Instead, there was a slow erosion of confidence. Fewer listings, thinner margins, more hesitation. By the time the warning signs became obvious, the foundation had already begun to crack. The signals had been there all along, small but steady, hinting that the dominance of the Yellow Pages was no longer guaranteed. The consumer behavior shift that happened before businesses reacted. While publishers were still printing millions of copies and businesses were still renewing ads, something much bigger was happening inside living rooms and offices. People were changing how they searched for information, and they were changing faster than anyone expected. At first, it was casual curiosity. Someone would try looking up a service online just to see what would appear. The results felt exciting. Instant answers, multiple options, maps, reviews. It felt interactive in a way the Yellow Pages never could. You did not just find a name and a number. You found comparisons. Slowly, that curiosity turned into habit. Instead of walking to the hallway table, people reached for a computer. Then later, for a phone. The search process became dynamic. You could refine it, narrow it, expand it. If one business did not seem convincing, you could move on instantly. The Yellow Pages offered authority through presence. The internet offered authority through choice. That difference mattered. Consumers began to value speed, convenience, and real-time updates. A printed directory could not change once it was distributed. An online listing could update at any moment. What makes this shift fascinating is that it happened quietly. No one held a meeting and declared the end of flipping pages. It just felt easier to search digitally. And when something feels easier, people rarely go back. By the time businesses fully recognized this change, their customers had already moved on. The habit had shifted, and habits are incredibly hard to reverse once they settle into daily life. Mounting debt, corporate restructuring, and financial freefall. As consumer habits shifted and advertisers hesitated, the financial pressure behind the scenes began to intensify. The Yellow Pages had been built on decades of steady revenue, and during its peak years, expansion felt safe. Companies borrowed heavily, invested in acquisitions, and structured operations around the assumption that renewal rates would remain strong. But when advertising revenue started slipping, those financial commitments did not shrink with it. Printing costs remained high. Distribution networks still needed funding. Sales teams still operated at full scale. The model was expensive to maintain, and declining ad sales created a dangerous imbalance. Debt that once seemed manageable began to weigh heavily on publishers. Large directory companies faced mounting interest payments while revenues thinned. Some attempted corporate restructuring, others merged. A few rebranded in hopes of distancing themselves from the perception of decline. What made the situation more fragile was timing. The fall in print advertising did not happen slowly enough to comfortably adjust operations. It accelerated. Businesses cut budgets. Consumers searched elsewhere. and the thick annual directories became thinner, reflecting the shrinking ad base. Bankruptcy filings eventually followed for several major directory publishers. These were not small companies. They had once been pillars of local commerce. Yet financial obligations built during prosperity became nearly impossible to sustain during contraction. The collapse was not caused by one bad decision. It was the result of a business model that depended on consistency in a world that had suddenly become unpredictable. When revenue dropped, the debt structure left little room to recover, turning gradual decline into financial freefall. The late and strained attempt to reinvent as a digital platform. By the time it became clear that print was losing ground, the Yellow Pages did try to adapt. Publishers launched websites. They created online directories. Some even invested in search tools that looked and felt modern. On the surface, it seemed like a logical evolution. If people were searching online, the Yellow Pages would simply meet them there. But the challenge was deeper than technology. It was perception. For decades, the brand was associated with a heavy book on a hallway table. It symbolized print. Meanwhile, newer digital platforms were born online. They were faster, more flexible, and built around algorithms that constantly improved search results. Even when Yellow Pages companies offered online listings, they struggled to compete with platforms that had already captured user attention. Search engines prioritized speed and relevance. Review platforms added user opinions. Maps integrated directions instantly. The digital world was moving at a pace that traditional directory publishers were not designed for. Internally, the shift was costly. Maintaining print while building digital infrastructure drained resources. Companies had to invest in new talent, new systems, and new marketing strategies, all while revenue was declining. The reinvention attempt was sincere, but it came late. By the time Yellow Pages platforms gained traction online, competitors had already established dominance. Trust had shifted. Habits had shifted. Attention had shifted. Transitioning from paper to pixels required more than a website. It required redefining identity. And by then, the window for leading that transformation had already narrowed significantly. The long-term business lessons, hidden in the fall of the Yellow Pages. The story of the Yellow Pages is not just about a book that disappeared. It is about how dominance can quietly turn into vulnerability. For decades, the directory felt untouchable. It had distribution. It had trust. It had recurring revenue. It had scale. From the outside, it looked permanent. But permanence in business is often an illusion. One of the biggest lessons hidden in this fall is how dangerous comfort can be. When a company controls a market for a long time, innovation can slow down. Processes become routine. Revenue feels predictable. And early warning signs are easier to dismiss because past success feels like protection. Another lesson is about consumer behavior. Businesses often believe loyalty is fixed. It is not. Customers follow convenience. They follow speed. They follow what feels easier. The moment a faster solution appears, habits begin to shift. And once habits change, even powerful brands struggle to pull people back. There is also a lesson about timing. Reinvention is strongest when it happens before decline becomes obvious. Waiting until revenue drops sharply makes transformation harder and more expensive. The Yellow Pages did not fail because it lacked value. It failed because the environment changed faster than it adapted. Its model was built for stability in a world that suddenly favored flexibility. In the end, the fall of the Yellow Pages reminds every business of one simple truth. No matter how established you are, relevance must be earned again and again. The Yellow Pages did not disappear overnight. It slowly faded as the world learned to search differently. What once felt permanent turned into a reminder that even the most trusted systems must evolve. In the end, it was not just a book that closed. It was the end of an era. If you enjoyed watching, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and drop us a note in the comments letting us know what you want to see us do next.